Okay, welcome back to math. Our goal today is going to be able to try to find the volume of cylinders. Volume of cylinders. Some cylinders are like soda cans, trash cans, things that are shaped like that. Write this down with today's date and page number. Here's your warm-up. Let's see if you can find the volume of each of these figures. It's based off stuff we've done previously. Remember, volume equals base times height. Or with rectangles, you can just think volume equals length times width. So here are the answers that you should have received. And yes, I used the calculator, and yes, you should use a calculator too to save yourself some time. So the first one, remember, volume equals length times width times height, which is really the same as base times height. Length and width tell you the rectangular shape, and then what's the height of it. And then for the other one, I did base times height because it's a triangle. I did 1/2 times base times height. Where actually I used length. And then multiplied by 11, there's your answer, 359.04 centimeters cubed. You should add the same answers, and if you're still stuck on this from a previous lesson, you got to come see me so I can help you. Try to get you on track. But if you see the formula, you just got to plug it in. You got to be able to identify which formula is used properly. Sticking with volume today, we're going to look at cylinders, as I said in the goal. And to find the volume of a cylinder, you can use the same method as you do for the prisms that we just did with rectangles and triangles. You find the base, and then you find the height. So the volume of a cylinder is really just base times height. Now, the area of a base is a circle, okay? And with circle, when you got to find the area of that, it's pi times radius squared, pi r squared. So the formula is the same, v equals base times height, but remember that the base is pi r squared. So it's really pi r squared times height. So pi times radius squared times height. So have this written down, and then let's go do some problems using this formula so we can get good practice. All right, so our first example here, we can see we have a cylinder that has a height of 7 and a radius of 4. Pretty simple. All we got to do now is plug and chug. So the first step is always writing the formula, which we can see here is v equals pi times radius squared times height. Now we just plug and then chug. So pi is 3.14. You can always use pi as 3.14. The radius is 4, so we plug 4 in for that. And we're going to have to square it, which means 4 times 4. And then we multiply by 7. Now 4 times 4, remember, is 16. So it's 3.14 times 16 times 7. Sometimes I like to write it in like that and have two plugs. Sometimes you got to put 2 plugs. So when you multiply pi times 16 times 7, you get 351.68. So the volume is about, and as you can see, I rounded it off to about 352. Now, if you notice here, right here we went from having an equal sign to a squiggly sign. And that squiggly sign means that it's about. And when you're doing about, it's because pi isn't exactly 3.14. It's the estimation of pi is 3.14. So that's why whenever we're going to work with these, we're going to say about, and then you can round it off to the whole number, 352, and it's still feet cubed. Have this down before moving on so you got a really good example to work off. Might want to even draw in the cylinder in your notebook. All right, let's take a look-ski at one more here. And this one you might want to write down because it is just a wee little different. So again, we see a cylinder. We got to find the formula, or the volume. Volume equals pi radius squared times height. So formula, plug it in. Now 3.14 and radius squared is 5 squared, or 5 is the radius. All you have to notice is we looked at the full diameter up here. Okay. Well, radius equals half the diameter. Okay. So half of 10 is 5. That's how we got that. So now that we got all our numbers in, we plug in the numbers and we chug out an answer. 3.14 times 5 squared, which is 25, not 10. 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. Times 11, you get 863.5. Or if you round up to just 864 centimeters cubed, you'll have the right answer. I would accept either of these if this was a worksheet or quiz or test. Both of those would be acceptable answers as long as you have it properly labeled at the end. All right, here's a tricky one I want to show you just for fun. So here we have our radius, which looks a little weird. We have our height, which is 9. So before we do anything, we're going to have to figure out what that radius is. So it's h over 3 plus 4. So it's trying to trick you, but you got to know what some of these numbers stand for. We're looking for radius. Radius equals what? H over 3 plus 4. Is there anything in this problem that represents h? You should notice that h is right here. The height is 9. So all you have to do is put 9 in for h. And that's how we get this. Okay? So it's just a little fun to see how well you're paying attention at the variables. Replace h with 9. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we're going to do 3 plus 4, which is 7. So our radius is 7. And then from there, you can work the problem out. Kind of a little fun thing to try to throw in there. Look for those as we move forward so I can see that you're getting practice looking at variables. All right, I just want you to do 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Remember, the formula has to be written down for each of these. Volume equals base times height. Volume equals base times height. And volume equals base times height. But remember that the base is going to equal the area for a circle, which is pi times radius squared. So always do the pi times radius squared, then the height. Come back when you got this done. So here are the answers. Everything's laid out properly. Formula, plug, chug. And I chugged out about 754 meters cubed, about 157 centimeters cubed, which is exactly what I got on the calculator, and about 3,140 inches cubed, which is exactly what I got on the calculator. So you should have had the same answers. If you did, give yourself a pat on the back. All right, so in this example, basically the scenario here is, what if you're given 2 different cylinders and you had to determine which one has a greater volume? Well, it's no more than just having to solve for the volume of one cylinder and the volume of the other. Rarely can you just look at them and be able to figure out. Plus, when these questions are written, they're written to make you not be able to just look at it. So, how do you find out which one's greater? You solve it. So we start with volume equaling pi radius squared height. Formula. We plug it in, because here's our height, here's our radius, which you just have to square, and we chug out an answer of 84.78 centimeters cubed, or you could say about 85 centimeters cubed. Then you go to cylinder 2. Formula, plug. That never changes. It's always 3.14. The height is 6. But here we have 6 as a diameter. Remember, the radius is half the diameter, so half of 6 is 3. That's the number you're going to square. 3 squared is 9. When you multiply those together, you get 169.56, or about 170 centimeters cubed. It's pretty clear to see that cylinder 2 now, after doing the work, is much greater than cylinder 1. I would encourage you to write this down to have an example so you can see how nice and neat it's all laid out. All right, it's your turn. I actually have 2 problems here. All I want you to do is number 5. This one you can try on your own if you want, but number 5 is the only one I'm worried about. So go ahead and find the volume of both and come back and let me know which one's greater. Here's the result you should have had. When you do the work, you find out that the second one is much, much larger than the first one. All right, if you got that right, come on over and give me a firm handshake. Here is your box of thought for today. They both say explain. That doesn't mean demonstrate. It means make sure you explain using words. And here's your 3-question quiz. When you're done, make sure you come to me. If you don't show your work, I will send you back.